Hello, I'm Rick Hertless, founder of His Gospel Power. Thank you for joining with our program as we look into the book of Daniel. We are in Daniel chapter 7, and today we are in verse 21. Before we get into that, please go to hisgospelpower.org, click on the donate button or the contact us button. And thank you to all of those who do support our ministry through your prayers and your financial gifts. Well, where we left off yesterday is basically the Antichrist, and we are looking at the last beast, the last kingdom that we are really in right now. Now, I'm not saying we're in the tribulation right now. I'm not saying that the Antichrist has been revealed right now. What I am saying is that from the Roman Empire, that we are looking at that we have really never left the Roman Empire. So we've been in the Roman Empire for 2,000 years, and so we are seeing just multifaceted aspects of the Roman Empire. And what we're seeing yesterday in 719 was a look at the Antichrist as he rises up, which is basically proof that we are still in the Roman Empire, because of the way it describes all the other kingdoms, the three that had already passed, and then the fourth in which Jesus would be there, where the Most High receives the kingdom to possess the kingdom forever and ever, which of course would have been Jesus during the Roman Empire. All right, so now we are in the 21st verse, and it says, "And I was watching, and the same horn." Now, okay, let's back up, because so you'll understand what the same horn was in case you weren't here yesterday. It says, "And the 10 horns that were on its," this is the verse before, "the 10 horns that were on its heads, and the other horn which came up, before which 3 fell, namely the horn which had eyes and a mouth which spoke pompous words, whose appearance was greater than his fellows," which of course is the Antichrist. So now we get into 21. "I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints, and prevailing against them." Okay, now I want you to get that. They were prevailing against the saints. We are talking about the tribulation here. And it is another aspect of where the Antichrist is coming against the saints in the tribulation. And we are talking, now we're not talking about the wrath. We will be safe from the wrath of God in the tribulation, but we will not be safe from the wrath of man or the wrath of the Antichrist. And of course, to prove that is today. There are many who are under the wrath of man today. Right now, as we speak, there are those who are facing prosecution for their belief in Jesus today, and some of them are facing death or imprisonment or whatever because of their stand for Jesus Christ. And we don't know what that's like here, because the number one reason is that we have the mamby-pamby Christianity here. Is that we go along to get along, and we are good with that, and we say, okay, we don't want to be persecuted, so we will compromise at every turn. We will join with the government, and the government tells pastors that they cannot speak out against political parties, and they do not. The pastors have found out that homosexuality is politically incorrect, and so they will not speak against that. Abortion is something that is controversial, and they will not speak out. When I listen to someone on YouTube that says, now I don't want to get political here, well, I just about shut them off. Because God tells us to get political. If you don't believe that, number one, this is Daniel that we're talking about. In the very first part, when he started talking to Nebuchadnezzar, he could have been put to death. Instead, because of of the gift that God had given him, he was elevated. Another one is John the Baptist. He was very political. He came against the king, told the king what he was doing was wrong, and guess what? He lost his head. And of course, you can go down the list. There are many who came against the government of the time, and Elijah was another one. He came against the government of the time, and of course, they came after him. So what's going to happen in these last days is, I believe it's Romans chapter 13. Research that real quick, Ron. See if Romans chapter 13, I believe, is the one where it talks about how we are to obey our ruling authorities. And what they are going to do in the last days is they're going to use that against us. Just like they've used judge not lest you be judged against us. They will use, because that's a lie. Okay. We don't need to get into that. We'll talk about it. It is in Scripture. Yes, it is. But it's totally out of context, and the way they use it is a lie. With this, Romans 13 says that we should,
I've got it.
What is that? Give that one.
It's 13:1 and 2. It says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment."
And so is that talk? So what is that saying? Is that saying we have to go along with, if we are a doctor, let's say, and someone says that we should abort a baby? Well, God says we should do that, so I'm going to do it. No, that's going, once it starts going against God's law. Remember, we already talked about Daniel. And Daniel was one of the great prophets. Well, he went against the law. The law was that he was not supposed to be praying and praying to anyone other than the great statue of Nebuchadnezzar, and he did it anyway. He prayed to God, and of course he was thrown in the lion's den, and what happened? He was not judged by God, he was delivered by God from the lions. So there is a proviso with these scriptures. You put them in the context, and the context is, when they begin to go against the Word of God, then you can step out from the ruling authorities. How many know that it was not God's will to allow Hitler to murder millions of Jews and Christians? So you can go against that law. Well, they're going to use that against us in time. That legislation will be used against us and say, you're supposed to be obeying the authorities, and you are not doing it because you are praying on the street or you are praying to Jesus or whatever. Well, they're going to do that, and they're going to use that against us. That's what the Antichrist agenda is going to be. And so what we're seeing in Daniel 7:21 is exactly that, where the same horn, which was Antichrist, was making the war against the saints and prevailing against them until the Ancient of Days came, who is Jesus, and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. And of course, that is the rapture of the church, which, there again, I don't want you to think I'm being contradictory in even what I believe. I believe in the rapture of the church, but I no longer believe we're going to be raptured before the tribulation. That's it. Now, am I 1,000% sure? No. I mean, I could be wrong, but from the scripture I'm reading, I believe the Lord's revealed to me that we will not be pre-tribulation raptured out of here because we're so wonderful. Why are we so wonderful? I mean, we are aborting babies. We're agreeing with transgenderism. We're agreeing with homosexuality. Wait a minute, Rick. I'm not. Yes, you are. You're not standing up against it. You're not vocalizing against it. It just came through, and boom, we let it happen. And now, not only did we let it happen, but now there are huge pastors across the country that are going along with it and agreeing with it. Well, guess what? According to Romans chapter 1, they are now guilty of homosexuality themselves. If you read Romans chapter 1, you would understand exactly what I'm talking about, Brother Ron.
That's a you went there, didn't you? There's actually, growing up, I don't think I had a misunderstanding about verse 21, but I wasn't fully sure of it. And really, the word that really got to me was prevailed, because I grew up under pastors that would just read it and say, okay, they prevailed over us. And, as a little kid, I thought we were going to win in the end. I looked at a couple other translations, and I think if I was a kid, this word would make more sense in a couple of the other translations. And it may help people out there that don't quite understand what prevailed means. And some of the other translations use overpowered. Well, that makes, to me, in thinking back when I was a kid, if someone would have said they overpowered us, that would have made more sense to me. And for some people, that may be easier to understand.
Because prevailing doesn't mean that they win. It means that they overpower us.
Right.
It means that they're winning at the time, basically.
Yeah, and really that prevailing just means that they're winning in the physical sense. And we can look at that today. I mean, if you don't believe we're in the the pre-tribulation, the birth pains, just look at South Carolina. They have made it illegal, and they do it under the auspices of anti-Semitism. But basically what they're saying is, in South Carolina, it's illegal to tell a Jew that they're not saved. So we can't.
Well, if you go to John Hagee's church, you're good then.
Well, yeah, true. But I mean, if you think about it, in the fine details, South Carolina passed anti-Semitism laws. It's illegal to say anything against Judaism and the state of Israel. Well, if you minister to a Jew and present the New Testament gospel to him, you just broke a law. Are they not prevailing over us at this moment by passing those types of laws?
That's what I was talking about. They're going to legislate persecution to us.
Which is
basically what that is.
And so we're already here where they're already prevailing over us with laws that they've already passed it. It passed a couple months ago. So this verse is being fulfilled today, not sometime in the future.
Absolutely. And so that's exactly what I meant as far as they're going to legislate persecution to us, which at that point, and we already got a taste of that with Obama. Because remember, there were many who were coming against businesses, against bakeries, against florists, against different things, telling them they had to do certain weddings for this homosexual marriage thing and all of that. And Obama had the power to stand up and say, oh, wait a minute now. The Supreme Court had the power to do all that. Now, ultimately, they did do that under the new Supreme Court. By the time it got to the new Supreme Court, and we had a new conservative on there, it kind of kicked all of that out. But so they were trying to legislate how we are, the evil. They were legislating evil, that we had to obey those laws of evil. And that's really what we've been seeing in the book of Daniel. This has been an excellent example as far as legislating persecution. I think Daniel's been excellent about that because we've been seeing the same thing we saw with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the same thing we've seen with Daniel. All of those things was done by the so-called laws of the land that had to be revoked once they were exposed.
And really, a lot of things they're doing today, they're already collecting information on us. This isn't.
Oh yes.
This isn't something that someday they're going to go, okay, we're going to start this program and start tracking all of you Christians. They're tracking you today.
Absolutely. I have a smart computer in front of me. They're looking at me right now.
Well, and I know you know the software. There's software out there that's already on all of our systems that they're already tracking everything that we do, websites we go to, people we contact, what we say to them.
Well, let me tell you how long this has been working. I've been in the music business for many years. I've been in the music business now, I guess, for about 30 years. So way back in the day, 20, 25 years ago, they had the software to where the computer would monitor the airwaves. And it monitors the airwaves every 3 seconds. And it would you would get paid by the computer monitoring the airwaves, and it would hear a piece of your song. And then every 3 seconds, of course, then it would put those together. And so then it would just automatically, you'd get paid because now I'm not talking about the artist, I'm talking about the writer. It would hear pieces of those songs, and I would get royalty checks. I would get royalty checks because of the computer software that was taking a sampling of the airwaves. That's how long, and that's exactly what's happening on a much larger scale now, and probably easier because of the internet, because now everything's digital. They weren't having to even monitor the airwaves. They can now monitor it digitally because all radio stations now are digital, and of course the internet and everything. And so now those samplings are much easier to get. And there's billions and billions and trillions of samplings that they're getting, and they're taking keywords, Antichrist, Jesus, God, homosexuality, all of these different words that they're taking, they're putting into some algorithm, and it leads them right to the ones that they think are doing good, and right to the ones that they think are doing bad.
Well, that was something just as the simple, one of the simplest things I can think of is, I don't know, it's probably 6 months ago now. There was a Facebook user agreement update. And 99.9% of people never read those things. You want to keep using Facebook? You're just going to hit OK. Yeah, I agree to whatever. In that user agreement, you gave Facebook the right. So if you're using Facebook today, if you've logged on today, then you had signed that user agreement. And in that user agreement, you gave Facebook permission to download your phone. So if they want to at any point, say, you or me get tagged as whatever category they want, I've already given Facebook permission to download my phone, and they can take whatever information I've done on it.
Well, I was sitting on my computer today or yesterday, I can't remember. I think it was just today. And the photos that are not in my computer or that are on my phone are coming up on my computer. I mean, all of this stuff's tied together.
Oh, I get searches that I do on my phone, like on Walmart or Amazon.
Sure.
They show up on my home computer that has never been connected to my phone.
Right. I mean, that's what I mean.
As advertisements. It's crazy.
It's all tied in there together, and that's just the way it is working. And that's showing in these last days, the Antichrist is already compiled. In fact, that came out when Obama was president, that how much they even touted how big of a database that he had. They said it was mind-boggling. It was so impressive. They were using those kind of words. It was so impressive, and it was so, forward-thinking and everything, the database of all of America that they have on us. Well, it's mind-boggling. It's not all that impressive. Well, that's all the time that we have. Thank you for joining with our program as we look into the book of Daniel. I pray that this book is helping you, this study that we're doing is helping you understand the practical aspects of how you are to live for Jesus in these last days. Please go to hisgospelpower.org, click on the donate button or the contact us button, and thank you so much to all of those who do donate and pray for ministry. Thank you for supporting us as we bring the gospel of Jesus Christ around the world. Until next time, I pray you receive His gospel power today.
He died for you. He died for me. From our sin, He set us free. He loved us so, His life He gave. So if we ask, we can be saved. He's calling you, He's calling you. Jesus Christ is calling you. If He's touched your heart and soul, let Jesus make you whole. Come near with me, and we will pray that all your sin be washed away. Don't be afraid, don't be ashamed. Just come and praise His holy name. He's calling you, He's calling you. to